Chapter 1. Overthinking. Lesson from Shakespeare. A beautiful flower may bloom from a very difficult situation. In April 1564, in Stratford-upon-Avon, north of London, England, Shakespeare was born. The single biggest worry of Shakespeare's time was public health and hygiene. Specifically, everyone was afraid of the bubonic plague, and they had good reason to be worried. The plague was a horrific and fatal infectious disease. The terrible outbreaks of the plague took the lives of vast numbers of individuals. In fact, millions upon millions of people in Europe ended up dying from the plague over the centuries. At the time, no one fully understood the plague. Medical authorities did not know exactly where the disease had originated, how it spread, or how to cure it. However, they did realize that a large sum of people crowded together increased the infection rate. This situation took place throughout Shakespeare's lifetime. With strict quarantines and the help of the weather, the epidemic would slow, and social activities would resume their ordinary course. However, after a break of a few years, the disease would inevitably return and ravage the country once again. When the death rate reached a specific number in London, city authorities shut the theaters down, including the Globe, which was famous for producing Shakespeare's plays. They could not resume their activities until the death rates decreased. Why have I recounted this story here? Well, Shakespeare lived his entire life under the dark cloud of the bubonic plague, but despite the gloomy outlook, he continued to follow his passion and worked hard to write and produce many plays. Not only did thousands gather to watch his plays in 16th century London, but his work went on to have a massive impact on the English language, on playwriting, and on culture as a whole. As a young boy, Abraham Lincoln read Shakespeare to master English. Hundreds of words and phrases we use every day first appeared in his writings, and many people believe Shakespeare was the best English writer of all time. Shakespeare took action and overcame his situation. No matter how depressing a situation can be, do not lose your focus and passion to the trap of overthinking. Even in difficult times, something remarkable may still arise. A beautiful flower may bloom from a very unexpected place. A masterpiece can come from chaotic circumstances. Do not despair in your difficult moments. Keep your faith in God. He will bring you through whatever obstacle you currently face. Before we can fully understand this, we first need to learn what overthinking is and how it takes a toll on our life. Once you understand what's holding you back, you can start the journey of becoming victorious, joyful, and at peace. What is overthinking? What is overthinking? It can be anxiety about the past, fear of the present, or worries for the future. It is a cognitive process that involves excessive or obsessive thinking about something, whether it's an event, a decision, a conversation, or an idea. This usually results in even more stress for the overthinker, who feels there are too many possible outcomes if a situation does not work out correctly, leaving them feeling helpless. Overthinking generally causes us to spend too much time ruminating with no action taken to solve the problem, thus having either a neutral or a negative effect on our well-being. When you overthink, one of two main outcomes can take place. 1. You become so immersed in ruminating on the problem at hand that you lose track of time. You struggle with insomnia for nights on end because you cannot shut off your mind when you lie down in bed. This negatively affects your mental and physical health. 2. You eventually realize that the solution to the problem was right in front of you all along. However, you lose interest in solving it because you've already made up your mind about the outcome and are convinced things will turn out badly, even though many other possibilities could occur. These outcomes indicate how harmful overthinking can be and why you need to stop. Overthinking leads to mental and physical stress. It also leads to frustration. Here's an example. Let's say you're a brand new business owner and you're getting ready to showcase your new brand to the public for the first time. You may feel anxious about what people are going to think of it compared to other products on the market. You may worry about whether they will like it at all, which leads you to worrying about failing in your business and having nothing to show for your hard work. You continue to overthink until you completely lose passion for debuting your brand because you've already decided how things are going to go down, badly, instead of taking a chance on the outcome. Unlike Shakespeare, you've allowed your circumstances to infiltrate your thoughts and take away your passion. Does this sound like you? Do you find yourself constantly asking, should I do this? Did I do the right thing? Or how am I supposed to do that? And then questioning your answer? Do you stay in this indecisive stage for extended periods of time? If so, it may indicate that you're overthinking. Here are a few other criteria you can use to determine whether or not you're an overthinker. A need for perfectionism. Constantly seeking the opinions of others. Insomnia. Burnout. Irritability. Hypochondria. Prolonged sadness. A belief that you do not have control over your life. Since you're reading this book, let's assume you are, in fact, an overthinker. What can you do about it? The answer to this is simple. Thoughts are either conscious or unconscious, and you must take control of the conscious ones to the best of your ability in order to improve the unconscious ones. Unconscious thoughts just sort of bubble up without any interference on our part and usually center on negative events and feelings like worry, anxiety, or regret. In your conscious thoughts, however, you can work on making the best of your situation. Causes and symptoms. The next step is to evaluate and solve the problem of overthinking in your life. First, it is essential to know what makes you overthink. That can be challenging. Perhaps it's mental issues, such as depression and anxiety. Maybe your fear of embarrassment pushes you to overthink what you wear or how you act in front of other people. Other factors that can cause chronic overthinking include childhood abuse or neglect, trauma, perfectionism, or a genetic predisposition to overthinking. These factors can affect the quality of our decisions in different ways. We will discuss these causes in the following paragraphs. Holding on to excessive worry. Research shows that severe anxiety is widespread among American teenagers. Most of them are afraid of failing in their lives. They worry too much about the world around them, about their image in the eyes of others. It's no surprise that they worry about what others think about them, and this tendency often continues into adulthood. The habit of constantly worrying that things could go wrong will push you to overthink. The negative images you develop in your mind will often feature the fear of failure. This drains your energy and your ability to make good decisions. Instead of worrying about the future, understand that thinking positively and constructively about accomplishing your goals is more productive. Remember, the future is uncertain for everybody. No one knows what will happen tomorrow, and Christ told us not to worry about tomorrow, Matthew 6:34. Therefore, the best thing you can do about the future is pray, plan for it, and then let whatever happens, happen. Changing your mentality to focus more on your goals and achieving them will motivate you to live a life with a sense of direction. The best part is that the sense of optimism you develop will help you see all aspects of your life from a positive perspective, increasing your overall sense of happiness. Negativity. Studies have shown that negativity is a common trait among those diagnosed with anxiety and depression. Past research has found that people who have a higher occurrence of these types of negative thoughts experience more stress and anxiety, which leads to subconscious patterns of overthinking and concentration problems. The problem isn't the level of stress or anxiety, but how often this kind of thought occurs and what you do about it. People who are prone to overthinking might want to prepare themselves for these negative thoughts and find coping mechanisms to keep their minds in check. Headaches and dizziness. A headache is a sign that your mind and body need rest. If you pay attention to your thinking, You might notice that you're thinking about similar matters repeatedly. Dizziness, likewise, is a common symptom of the tension brought about by worry and might happen when you're stressed. Sometimes the dizziness can be so intense that it causes concentration, vision, and task performance problems. If you're experiencing headaches and dizziness on a regular basis, it's possible that you're overanalyzing things. Of course, it's possible that these are symptoms of an underlying health problem, so it's wise to get these symptoms checked by a professional. However, if you are otherwise healthy, these symptoms might be a sign that you're worrying too much and having issues with anxiety. Negative emotions. You can know whether you are overthinking by checking for the symptoms of depression. Subconscious negative thoughts can be a symptom of clinical depression. Note that not everyone who has negative thoughts is clinically depressed, but it's something to watch out for. Other symptoms of depression include sadness, irritability, and an overall lack of interest in things that make you happy. You might also feel completely overwhelmed by the responsibilities of your day-to-day life. It's easier to just stay in bed all day. You could also have trouble concentrating and focusing on things around you. You might feel a lack of motivation to do anything but feel guilty for not doing anything, and even avoid social interactions with other people. If you are experiencing any of these symptoms, please seek help from a professional to get yourself feeling better. Abstract thinking. This refers to thinking which goes beyond concrete realities. When you formulate theories to explain your observations, you engage in abstract thinking. This can be a useful skill, but it can also be detrimental if you're an overthinker. For example, when your business is not performing well, you might jump to the conclusion that it's because you're doing something wrong and begin ruminating over your shortcomings instead of considering other possibilities. Avoidance. Avoidance means that you try to avoid doing something by using the decision-making process as an excuse. That is, you spend so much time going back and forth between options because you want to avoid having to choose anything at all. Neglecting intuition. This occurs when you don't take into consideration the things you already know at the core of your being, and instead opt to overthink. Instead of following your gut instinct, you end up second-guessing your intuition and could make the wrong decisions. Creating problems. You may also think in a way that creates problems that are not there. Certain situations are not as complex as you may perceive them to be. The problem at hand may only require a couple of minutes to solve, but when you overthink it, you make it much more complicated than it needs to be. It is vital to focus on the bigger picture and not nitpick at the details. Try to see things as they are. Don't complicate your life by thinking of potential problems. Magnifying the issue. Usually, small problems require simple solutions. Unfortunately, sometimes we amplify these problems and develop overly complex ways to solve them. This is another form of overthinking. You're wasting your mental resources to come up with huge, elaborate solutions that don't match the scale of the problems you're experiencing. Fear of failure. Fear of failure is not a new concept to most people. This motivates many of us to work hard. But for an overthinker, instead of letting that fear drive you to work towards a bright future, you let that fear grow inside you and consume your thoughts. Fear of failing can be crippling. It can cause you to rethink your actions and motivations. It can prevent you from taking the initial step. It can cruelly eat away at your self-confidence if you allow it to, leaving you feeling utterly incapable of taking the necessary action to realize your goals. A certain amount of dread can inspire you if you remain focused on the end objective. For example, think of a public speaker who turns their nerves into excitement and motivation to give a fantastic speech. Despite these nagging anxious thoughts, you can use the nervous energy to force yourself toward your goal. Failure can be a helpful learning experience if we allow it to be. We all must fail occasionally to develop as individuals and improve. Making irrelevant decisions. An overthinker may believe it is vital to make certain decisions that they are not actually required to make. For instance, you might be convinced that you need to plan out all of your major life decisions for the next several years right at this very moment, when in fact, it is just fine to let life unfold before you and make decisions one at a time as they are presented to you. Now that we've explored some of the symptoms and causes of overthinking, let's examine the 3 main forms of overthinking. 3 forms of overthinking. There are 3 dangerous forms of overthinking: ruminating, fear, and excessive worrying. Let's dive into each of these. Ruminating, rehashing the past. Ruminating is obsessively going over a thought or problem repeatedly without ever coming to a conclusion. Whether it be repeating an old argument in your mind over and over, or mentally replaying a mistake you made like a broken record, you just cannot seem to let the thought go no matter what. Ruminating is heavily connected with depression because this mental health condition causes you to remember the worst aspects of yourself continually. You can see the self-defeating aspect of ruminating. It's one of the most dangerous things about overthinking because it paralyzes you and prevents you from taking action. What's the point if, according to your mind, you're just going to fail, no matter how hard you try, or it's already too late to turn things around from a previous bad decision? As you can see, rumination reflects how you view yourself and is thus deeply rooted in self-esteem and self-image. If you've experienced any form of abuse, neglect, or trauma, it could result in lower self-esteem or self-image. This is further exacerbated if you have a history of academic, athletic, or social underperformance during your formative years and have been constantly compared to your higher-performing peers. Without any obvious talents to make you think otherwise, it's easy to feel like you're a nobody. Fear for the present. Fear for the present actually stems from the past. It is a reminder that things can be taken away in an instant, and there is nothing you can do about it. If you find yourself constantly in a state of fear about what could happen to you or a loved one at any moment, you are experiencing this form of overthinking. This feeling activates when you have something important on your mind and don't want anything else to stand in its way, whether it's a relationship or a work project. The fear hinders your productivity because you're constantly worrying about danger or failure. The anxiousness associated with this fear makes it difficult to concentrate on key tasks. Another reason we may find it difficult to live in the present is that it is constantly filled with reminders of our mortality. Whether we realize it or not, we become acutely aware of life's relentless course. Change is the only constant. However, if you relive the same scenario over and over again, whether it's about to happen or has already happened, you are being consumed by your thoughts. If you tend to get caught up in negative visions of the future, you are locked in worry mode. We all do this to some degree, but the critical question is whether or not you have moved into addictive thinking territory. Just like an addiction to substances consumes a person with anxiety, worry, and doubt, being addicted to overthinking and overanalyzing creates a sense of being bound to suffering. It takes you over, and it isn't very easy to be present and in your body. Why does this happen? Because underneath the fear, subtle or not, emotions are begging to be processed. For example, if you are nervous about an upcoming conversation, rather than being with and facing the fear, your brain will run every possible scenario to try to make you feel that you can control the outcome, to try to make you feel secure. This is not realistic. Don't be trapped by this false promise. The reality is, we can't control what happens in life, and it's better to learn to live without the fear. Excessive worrying, predicting the future negatively. Worry is your brain anticipating potential problems in order to avoid them, but this tends to lead to negative, usually disastrous future predictions. I'm going to fail the test tomorrow. I'll blank out, forget everything, and end up failing out of school. I'll never get my dream job. There's always going to be someone better than me. I should play it safe and work a stable and well-paying career I hate. As you can see, ruminating and worrying are closely related. Both cause one to think negatively, whether it be about oneself or a situation. You may feel stressed about your presentation tomorrow, so you start to tell yourself that you won't do a good job. The more you think about it, the more you worry about what could go wrong, and the worse you feel. Or perhaps you have low self-esteem and feel that you aren't good enough, so you constantly worry that your spouse or partner will find someone else and leave you. Because you don't believe in yourself, you don't have confidence in how things will turn out. You are therefore always worrying about the future, fear of the unknown. Rescuing yourself from overthinking. Overthinking is such a common cause of stress